Hello, everybody. Welcome to the free Greek course where I'm going to teach you how to speak Greek and also show you the exact system that I use with my students to teach them how to speak. We're going to break everything down. We're going to go step by step. So, without further ado, let's jump into my computer and let's kick it off. So, here we are within my computer. Let's do this. Welcome to the free Greek course where you're going to learn how to speak Greek and you will get the exact system that I used to help dozens of students speak Greek. And I have helped a lot of students so far. For example, Lucy over here, where we've been doing lessons together for 3 months at the moment of that review. And she's able to speak with her in laws because she's in a relationship with a Greek guy. And that is very, very cool because he's been able to connect with his family. And also, she's been able to have small talk with many shop owners, which is pretty amazing. We also have Lara over here, where she is able to understand the word around her a bit better, right? She's been able to read a sign within a gym, which is super, super cool. And she's been doing great, great progress. And we've been able to build to more and more conversations the more time passes. Also, we have Natalia over here at the bottom, where she joined our conversational classes, our group conversation classes, and she's been able to feel more confident and progress more and more day by day, which is extremely cool. And as you see, I have worked with a lot of students. We have a lot of reviews that you can also see, a lot of videos. We have Natalia over here from Brazil. We have Stefano from Italy. We have Claudio from Portugal, Ted from America. We have Damiano from Italy as well. And here, Rory from America as well. And I want to tell you a little bit about my past. So I started teaching in Preply. I'm sure some of you are familiar with it. There are a lot of platforms like Preply where you can get in touch with a tutor and do one-on-one lessons. And I started with Preply, and it was super, super cool, right? I gained a lot of experience teaching in Preply, and I actually gathered a lot of reviews there as well. Many, many satisfied students. And because of that, Preply used my profile. This is me, by the way, with hair back then. Use my profile to advertise, right? To make advertisements on social media. And this is a screenshot that I took from Facebook where it was my profile to attract Greek students to come have lessons within Preply with me, which was super, super cool. But I wasn't super satisfied with being on Preply because I wanted to build my own space to have people to connect, right? To come together, to connect, to learn from each other. So I created a little community in this platform that you're at right now called School. The platform is called School, but my community back then was called Polylog Community. You see, we had only 3 members when I first launched, and it was a journey, really, really fun. And it was also a journey for me because I started posting content on social, right? Trying to help more Greek students. This was my first piece of content that I posted in a super rough, you can say, way because I didn't know anything about making videos. I'm here with my gym shorts, pretty funny stuff. But the community has been able to grow, which was super cool. And now we're at the point where we have over 1,400 members, which is really, really, really nice. And I'm super proud of it and super proud of you guys as well with the progress that you've been doing. So that has been super cool. And the community is 100% for free. Right now, it's called Free Greek Course, and it's 100% for free. But why is it free? Because that is directly connected with my mission. And my mission is super simple. It's to help people learn how to speak Greek around the world and connect with locals. Whatever connecting it is with you, right? Maybe it is speaking with your in-laws like Lucy. Maybe it is to be able to order food at a restaurant, right? Or maybe you're moving to Greece and you want to make friends. So these are normally all the examples that we find within the community, which is very, very cool. And I have spent a lot of time and energy trying to find the most effective methods to learn Greek, and I have put everything I learned over the past years, teaching but also studying Greek, in this course. And I'm offering you the first part of it 100% for free so that anyone and anywhere can get started. But why? Because I want to help get results for you first, and if it makes sense, help you learn even further later on if you need it, right? But also have a very also have a very important reason as well why I'm doing this, which is I also built this course for one of the people that I care about the most, and that is my partner. She's also learning Greek, and I want to give her all the help that I can so that she can learn effectively and achieve the goal of learning Greek. All right, super cool. So I want to show you a little bit the roadmap of the community that you're in right now, but also the show you a few words about Polylog itself, which is the brand, right? It's my company, the brand that helps people learn Greek. The free Greek course, it's only a small part of the brand. It's called Free Greek Course, right? You can access it through this link as well, polylog.co/free Greek course. And this is what I'm offering for free in this community, which is the Unit 1 to be able to build your first sentences, right? Which is a very important milestone for any Greek learner. And we have a few videos over here. You're watching this one right now, which is the welcome video, where we're going to touch on a lot of interesting things. But then you have a video about reading, right? Because reading is important, but it doesn't have to be complicated reading, right? We just need you to be able to read up to a level where you'll be able to continue with the rest of the course, because a lot of sentences and a lot of sounds, we'll be able to see them within the course as well. Then we're going to introduce the core verb pattern, right? Then we're going to build and expand on it a bit more. We're going to introduce a few everyday verbs. We're going to introduce na, which is a very important connector, and it will allow you to make more complicated sentences. And lastly, we're going to discuss the next steps for you. So this is what you're basically getting. You're getting the free training over here, which is basically the course, right? The free Greek course. You're getting free community, meaning you're getting access to the whole community, which is over 1,400 people now, of people learning just like you, maybe for the exact same reasons as you. So it's a great, great opportunity for you to ask questions about Greek, because I'm sure there's people that are more ahead on their journey with Greek than you are, so they know what you're struggling with. So if you have any questions, feel free to go into the free community and ask questions to solve any issue that you might have. But also, it's a great way for you to connect with people, right? Because no matter what you do, no matter what we do, it's better to do it with others. It's more fun, it's more instructive. So feel free to take advantage of the free community, because honestly, life is just so much better when you enjoy it and share it with others. And lastly, within this free Greek course, you're getting access to a weekly Q&A, which is happening every Sunday. And you can hop in, I'm there, and you can ask me any question that you like about Greek. We can make a few examples. We can talk about it. And solve all your questions about Greek, right? Even culture as well. If you have any cultural questions, feel free to ask them over there as well. So this is the first part. And there is a natural progression to this. So after you kind of like go through all of the training, you might feel like you need more training, right? To be able to advance your speaking skills in Greek. And for this one, I have created the Polylog Master Class, where over here, basically we go fully in depth within Greek. For example, we're going to learn to link our ideas, talk about yesterday and tomorrow. We're going to learn to sound more natural, handle real conversations, and start speaking with confidence. And this is everything that you need to be able to speak Greek like a local, basically. So we're going through everything in there, right? We're kind of like making your speaking sword, completely sharp to be able to handle any situation in Greek with speaking, right? And you can access this page at polylog.co/start, where you can book a call with me and discuss if this is for you, right? If this is something that's worth exploring. And basically what you get within the Polylog Masterclass, you get the full Greek course, right? Everything you need to know. You get daily Q&A calls, where instead of once per week, I go live one time per day. So I'm able to solve all of your questions, right? Because now we're going to have way more material for you to explore. We're going to have conversation practice classes a few times per week, where you'll be able to apply everything that you learn, right? Because also that's the next part. You learn everything, cool, but you have to be able to apply it as well, because that's how you eventually learn how to speak, right? You have to speak it. So this is where you apply everything within the conversation practice classes. And lastly, you have access to flashcards, because we'll be covering a lot of words and a lot of phrases within the course and the videos that I'll be sharing. And the flashcards can help you solidify the material, right? So this is also a great tool. And I will have prepared the flashcards for every lesson. So you will just have the deck ready of the flashcards and you'll be able to practice just like that, right? And if you're not sure what the flashcards are, um, I get more in depth what these are and what every little part of the Polyglot Masterclass is. Go ahead, book your call with me, and I can discuss everything, right? And solve all your questions. So this is how the course roadmap looks like. Now, I'm getting into a very important part of this video, right? Of this lesson as well, which is decision and beliefs, because your mindset is such an extremely important part of learning, and we need to address that and have the right mindset in order to effectively learn Greek, right? And I want to start with Rosa Parks. So Rosa Parks was a woman in Alabama in 1955. At that time, there were laws that forced black people and white people to sit separately on buses. She was told to give up her seat to a white passenger. She refused and was arrested. Her decision helped start a movement for equal rights. She didn't know what would happen next. She just decided she would not move. Super inspiring story of Rosa Parks. If you don't know it, feel free to go ahead and Google it. And she basically was a pivoting point where the change from racial injustice happened. Right, people started respecting black people more after this incident, and also Martin Luther King came into started becoming more popular since that incident. So it's a very inspiring moment within American history. And the lesson over here is that Rosa Parks did not know how she would be able to make a change, but she knew she wanted a change. She wanted the racial injustice to stop. And sometimes in life you don't know the how, right? You just know that you want to make a change. But the action that you have to take is to take the first step. And the first step for Rosa Parks was to not give up her seat. And I want to connect that directly with Greek, because you have to decide, but really decide, that you want to learn. And you might not feel ready, you might not know the full plan, and that's completely okay. But there has to come the moment where you stop saying one day, right? Especially for those people that start and quit. You stop starting and stopping, you stop making excuses, you decide that you are learning Greek. And that moment is now, with this amazing resource that you have in front of you to learn Greek. And I want to end with this quote, which is, it's your decisions, not your conditions, that determine your destiny. And this is not my quote, right? It's a famous quote. I don't know by who, but it's a very powerful quote, right? It's your decisions, not your conditions, that determine your destiny. All right. Now, the thing that we need to figure out after you really sincerely decide that you want to learn Greek is we have to figure out your why, right? Why do you want to learn? Is it to live in Greece and feel integrated, not like an outsider? Is it to talk to your partner's family without feeling left out? Is it to travel with confidence? Is it to stop depending on someone else to translate? What is it? We have to be very clear on your why, because it's going to be like your fuel to go through the hard times that you might encounter on your journey learning Greek, right? Because we encounter hard times no matter what we do, right? When you try to learn a skill like learning Greek, you will encounter some hard moments. By being super clear on your why do you want to learn Greek, is going to push you to actually go through those moments, right? And then we have to tackle our beliefs. What do you believe about learning Greek? Is it hard? Is it easy? Are you too old to learn? You're not good with languages? So, tackling your beliefs, especially your limiting beliefs, and breaking through them is very important to make a change that will last. So, this is what we also want to explore with this lesson. And that brings me to the actions. How do we make that happen, right? So, first off, with your why, write down all the bad things that will happen if you don't learn Greek, right? Think about all the pain, think about all the discomfort that you will have by not learning Greek. Maybe you won't be able to order the food that you like. Maybe you won't be able to make friends. Maybe you won't be able to connect with the in-laws, right? With the in-laws of your spouse. Then you have to write down all the good things that you will learn by learning Greek, right? including the respect that you will have for yourself, the high self-esteem that you achieved something difficult, right? All of that stuff. So feel free to go crazy creative with that. Not only about speaking the language, that you'll be able to have conversations, of course, make jokes maybe, right? Speak with in-laws and stuff, but also all the different positive consequences that come from achieving such a goal. So go for it, write that down. And then we want to address our limiting beliefs. List your limiting beliefs about Greek, no matter what that is, right? Something that I've been hearing is that I am too old to learn Greek, which is not true at all, right? At all. And I have a lot of experience teaching Greek, and something like that is not true at all. So, what you want to do is you want to question these disempowering or limiting beliefs by asking these questions. For example, how is this belief ridiculous or absurd? So if we take the example of I'm too old to learn Greek, you have to think about here an example where you were old, for example, at this period of your life that you consider yourself to be old, and think about something that you were able to do, no matter that you're old, something that you were able to learn, right? Even if you have one example here, it disproves this belief that you are too old to learn because you have an example that you learned something while you were old. What will it cost me emotionally if I don't let go of this belief, right? How will you feel if you are stuck at this belief that you are too old to learn? Maybe you will feel powerless or hopeless that you cannot achieve the things that you want to, right? What will it cost me in my relationships if I don't let go of this belief? For example, what will your partner think of you if you think of yourself being too old to learn, right? So how will they perceive you, right? So you want to be somebody that maybe your spouse admires, right? And having a belief like that, maybe they see you in a way, in a bit of a negative light, right? So think about that. What will it cost you in your relationships, right? If you don't let go of this belief. What will it cost me physically if I don't let go of this belief? For example, if you're old, if you think that you're old to learn, then what would that mean? Maybe the fact that you're too old will spread in other parts of your life. Like, for example, physically, you might think that you're too old to like walk or run maybe 5 miles, right? And what will that cost you physically? Maybe you won't be able to get to the shape that you want to get if you feel like you're too old, right? So be creative with that stuff. Ask a lot of questions like those. What will it cost me financially, right? What will it cost my family or loved ones if I don't let go of this belief? Go pretty crazy with that. Make a big list so that you really understand how your limiting beliefs are limiting you. After you do that, you want to go to your empowering beliefs about Greek, right? For each limiting belief, write down an empowering one, the antithesis of it if you can. For example, with I'm too old to learn Greek, think about something that will help you actually that will push yourself towards learning Greek. For example, I have noticed that many people that think they're too old to learn, um, generally older people, they're very patient, right? They're very patient. So actually, this can be a crazy advantage with a skill like learning Greek, because if you're patient, you can actually go through the whole journey of learning Greek without being discouraged along the way, because younger people actually tend to be impatient and getting discouraged by not getting immediate results. So you might turn this around, this belief of like, I'm too old to learn, by saying something like, because I'm old, I am patient, and this will allow me to learn Greek the right way, right? And what you want to do now, after you have this belief in your mind, after you have this phrase, maybe for now it's a phrase, it's not a belief yet, maybe, that you're too patient, you're very patient, and that's why you're going to be able to learn. Think about examples in your life that you were patient and you managed to learn something because of your patience, right? So think about it like this: the empowering belief, it's kind of like the surface of a table, and you want to think about examples like being patient enough to learn Greek because you're old. Think about examples like that, and basically the examples are the legs on the table that support this belief to stay up, right? So feel free to find examples with you being patient when you were old and you learned something because of your patience, right? So this is me breaking down one limiting belief, right? So you have to do this with every limiting belief that you have, to actually have a list with your why, have a list with your limiting beliefs, have your list with your empowering beliefs, and have that next to you, right? So that you can see it and get that strength that you need to go through the hard times of learning. And that's it. That's the first lesson, right? If you have any more questions, you want to know about the Polylog Masterclass, feel free to go at that uh, link over here, polylog.co/start, so you can book your call and we can talk more about it. All right, super good. I will see you in the next lesson, which is going to be the reading. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another video of the free Greek course. And today we're going to be tackling reading. And specifically, we're not going to be reading essays or novels or anything too crazy. We're just going to be covering the fundamentals that you need for reading to continue with this course. Specifically, what sounds the letters make of the Greek alphabet and what sounds they make if you put them together one after the other in a specific order. So this is what we're going to be covering today. Let's get into it. All right, so here I have the Greek alphabet. I have a big table for you where we have on the left column, we have the Greek letter, how it looks like, uppercase and lowercase. We have the letter name in Greek. Over here, we have an English word to hear the letter sound, right? We have a simple Greek word, and we have the pronunciation of that Greek word that I have provided here. So at first, for example, introducing the first letter, we're going to go to the simple Greek word. There's going to be a few more letters in there. That's completely fine, right? We're going to read them properly. I'm going to introduce them, and we're going to keep on going until we cover all of the alphabet. And eventually, I have some letter combinations here for you guys to go through together that we might find as well. And lastly, some examples, right, that we can go through and read together. We don't care about the meaning of the words at all. We only care about the words coming out right, sounding right. This is the only thing that we care about in this video. All right, so let's get into it. Starting with the first letter, and here we have the letter alpha. Alpha. This is the uppercase letter. This is the lowercase letter. It's pronounced as A. You don't really need to know the names of the letters per se. You don't really need to know them in order to be able to speak. It's just a good way to know how to address them, right? Some people also address them in English as well. They're like the A, right? That's fine if you want to do it. But if you don't want to do it, if you want to keep it strictly Greek, you can just refer to the Greek name. But again, you don't need to know the letter names in order to speak Greek. All right, so this is the letter alpha. This is how it's called, and it makes the sound A. For example, like in English, when we say apple, right? Apple. A simple Greek word that we can see that contains alpha is alati. Alati. And the pronunciation goes like this. Alati, right? Moving on, I'm going to zoom in even more here. I think this is the maximum that I can go. We have the letter vita. Vita. This is how it's called. This is the uppercase, the lowercase. And the letter, the sound that it makes is v, like when we say van, right? Van. And a Greek word that we can see is vazo. Vazo. Pronounced as vazo, like we see here, right? So here we're just introducing. If you want to give it a go as well to pronounce the words like I do here, for example, vaso, feel free to pause the video and give your own version of it, your own pronunciation. And if you're unsure about it, play it back again so that your pronunciation matches my pronunciation. Then we have the third letter of the alphabet, and this is the letter gamma, looking like this, uppercase, lowercase. The sound that it makes is the sound like this. It's kind of like clearing your throat a little bit. But it can also have a more forward sounding sound. For example, when you say something like yell or yes. So this is one of those letters that we're going to see through the course as well, that it produces a couple of different sounds. One of them resonates on your throat, and one of them resonates within the mouth. For example, two words in Greek for those two different placements of the sound. The first one is Gala, gala, right? And I can feel the letter resonating here. Gala. And we have also the more forward sounding sound, which is ya, ya. Like when you say yes or yell. So it resonates in my mouth. Ya. And we can see also in English pronunciation here. Gala and ya, right? And keep in mind that not always the English letters will be able to capture the pronunciation. I'm doing my best to give you here some um, ways to pronunciate it using English letters, but it's not always going to be super faithful to the actual pronunciation. So your first kind of like piece of information is how I pronounce them, and then for help you can look at this column as well. Then we have the fourth letter of the alphabet. This is the uppercase, the lowercase. This letter is called delta, and the sound that it makes is like when you say this or that or there. And a Greek word that we can see is doro, doro. And this is the Greek R. It's not a P, right? More on that later. For example, doro, like so. Then we have this guy. This is the uppercase. This is the lowercase. The name of the letter is epsilon, epsilon, and it makes the sound e, just like that. E. For example, egg, egg. And in Greek, we can see this word like right here, which is ena, ena. And this is not an English V sound. This is an N sound in Greek. More on that a bit later in the alphabet. Enna. Then moving on to this guy, uppercase, lowercase, and that is named zeta. And it makes the sound z, like when you say zoo, for example, zoo. It's like in English, right? The Z. And in Greek, we can say zari, zari. All right? Pronounced like this as well. Moving on to this guy, which looks like an H, right? And this looks like an N with an English N with the line drawn over here on the right. So this is called ita, and it makes the sound E. And as we will see, we have many, many E sounds in Greek that are all exactly the same, pronounced exactly the same. For example, even, even, the first E, right? Even. This is that E. And in Greek, we can say ilios, ilios, or ilios. The C is always ilios, like so. So definitely focus on the beginning of the word every time, because that's where the sound of the letter that we are teaching is, in the beginning of the word. What is happening next is kind of secondary, right? Then we have this a bit weird looking guy, right? It's like a no with a line, horizontal line in the middle. Uppercase, lowercase. The name is theta, theta. And it makes the sound like when you say think, like a TH sound, like when you say think or thoughts. Yeah. In Greek, we can see this example. Θέλω, θέλω, right? And we saw that before. Θέλω, θέλω. Which, by the way, notice that this TH from think is different than that TH from this, right? We have this, and that is the sound, that is the letter delta, this or that, and that is think from thoughts, for example. Then we have another E sound, right? The name of this letter is iota, right? Looking like an I in English a little bit. And the sound that it makes, it's exactly like this E, exactly the same. Even, even. That's why I put here the same word, even. And a Greek word that we can see is isos, isos, isos. Pronunciation here also. Moving on, to our K sound, right? Uppercase, lowercase. This is kappa. That's how we call our K sound, kappa. And it makes it sound K, like when you say cat, for example. Or castle, right? Castle. Or coffee. And this is the word that I have here in Greek. That is kafes. Kafes. Then we have the L sound in Greek, uppercase and lowercase. The name in Greek is lambda. For example, lake, lake, or love. Love. I like that word better. Love. Can I write it here? Love. All right. And over here, we have a Greek word, and that is lavi. Lavi. Pronounced like this as well. And again, for now, I'm just showing, we're not practicing together. We are practicing together, of course, but I'm just showing you how the sounds, how the letter are sounding in Greek, right? But below, we're going to practice even more, and you have the chance for you to practice as well. Then we have the M sound, and this is how it looks like, uppercase, and this is our lowercase for M, right? And the name of it in Greek is me, like when you say man. And in Greek, we can say mana, because I told you before this is an N sound, right? Mana, like so, mana. Then moving on to our N sound, and like I said before, this in Greek is the lowercase n. In Greek, we pronounce that ni. For example, no, or in Greek, nero, nero. And then we're arriving to this guy, this pretty weird looking guy, right? We have 3 horizontal lines for the capital letter and the lowercase letter over here. And we call that in Greek xi. And it makes the sound like you say X-ray, X-ray. But when you say X-ray, you kind of saying like something like like X. You kind of saying like this, X-ray. It's like as if you're putting an E in front of it. But in Greek, you have to isolate the closed sound of X. So if we think of that X is comprised of E and X, we're keeping the X. And that is the name of, that is the sound of this letter, the X. In a way, it's just a KS sound, X. And a word that we can see here is xilo, xilo, pronounced like this as well, xilo, right? And this is another E, exactly making the sound that we saw before with our E's, but it's just spelled differently. We're going to see it very soon. Then we're moving to our O sound in Greek. O, this is the sound that it makes, O. It's not O, O. So in English, it tends to be a bit rounded, O. It's O, O. You're kind of cutting off that roundness, O. And it's pronounced Omicron, the name of it, Omicron. For example, when you say office, office, right? And a Greek word that we can see is ohi, ohi. And that is a word for no in Greek, ohi. Then we're moving to this guy, which kind of looks like a door almost, the uppercase and then the lowercase. And that is the P sound in Greek, the P sound. And we pronounce the letter as P. We name the letter as P. That's how we call it, P. And it makes the same sound like when you say pen, right? Pen. And in Greek, we can see the word poli, poli, right? Poli. We're moving on to our R sound, but it's not really an R because when you say R, you're kind of pushing your tongue a bit more back in your mouth, R. In Greek, we have to pull the tongue forward. So you have to say R, ro, ro. That's how we call it as well. Ro, ro. So it's a bit of a rolling R. Ro, 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 ro. And in Greek, in English, you say red, red, but in Greek, you have to push that sound forward. You have to say roda, 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 right? So you need a little bit that rolling R. If I pronounce that R, like you do in English, that would be roda, roda. But we don't want our tongue going back forwards like so. Roda. We want roda, roda. All right. Through the course, all of these sounds of the letters will start to make more sense. We will see a lot of examples. Then we have our S sound in Greek, and the S sound in Greek has three forms. This is the uppercase, this is the lowercase, and this is the ending S. So whenever a word ends with an S, you use this guy right here. The name of this letter, is sigma. Sigma. And we can see a word like sun in English, right? To understand the sound. Sun or sound. A Greek word that we can see is sakos. 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 All right. Then we have our letter for T, our T letter, right? T. Uppercase, lowercase. And we pronounce that taf. That's how we call it. Taf. And the sound that it makes is like when you say top, top, top. And in Greek, we can say tora, because we saw that was an R, right? Tora, tora. And I'm spitting on my microphone by mistake. Tora. All right. Moving on to this guy, who's also an E sound, exactly like the previous ones, exactly like this guy, exactly like this guy. This is an ita, this is a iota, this is an ypsilon, that's how we call it, ypsilon, and they all make the same sounds. The example that I have here is eat, but I could have had instead even, like before. Eat. And in Greek, we can see the word hypnos, hypnos. And for the previous E's, we saw isos, ilios. So you understand it makes exactly the same sound. And this shouldn't be here. We should have hypnos. Then we have this guy, which in my eyes looks a little bit like a pastry. So this is the Greek F, our F in Greek. We pronounced it as phi. That's how we call it, phi. And the name that it makes is F, like when you say fan. Sorry, the sound that it makes is F, like when you say fan. For example, we can see this Greek word, which if you want, take a moment to give it a try to pronounce it. That would be feta, feta, feta. And that is, of course, the Greek cheese, right? Feta. Then we're arriving at an interesting letter that looks like the X in English, but it makes a drastically different sound. This is the uppercase letter, this is the lowercase letter. We call it he, he. And again, like our letter for the gamma letter, r, that it had two different sounds for it, the more back in the throat and the more forward in the mouth sound. The same happens here with our he letter. We have the more back in the throat letter, which is sound, not letter, which is happy, happy. So it resonates over here, happy. And we have the more forward in the mouth sound, which is more in the mouth, hue, hue, right? And we can see a couple of Greek words as well. This is chara, same like happy, chara. And this is cheri, like hue, right? Cheri. Chara, cheri. Now you might be thinking, how do I know in which way should I pronounce it? Should it be more back in the throat or more forward in the mouth? Well, it depends on the letter that comes right after. So when you have an ah sound, then always it's back in the throat. Same for the letter above that we saw, the third letter of the alphabet, the gamma. If you have a, it's back in the throat, ha or ra. If you have an o, it's also back in the throat. It's ho or ro for the other letter, right? I'm covering both letters now. If you have an oo sound, it's also back in the throat, hu or ru. Here, in this example of the letter, it's hu. But if you have sounds like an e or an e, they dilute the sound a little bit and they push it up on the throat, and it resonates on the mouth, in the mouth, like heri or hino, right? But again, these are small nuances of the sounds that we're gonna understand a bit more as we go through the course. No need for you to like stick around and remember that stuff. We don't want that. I'm just familiarizing you with the sounds that we're gonna come across. But again, you don't need to stick around here for a long time. You just need to pass this lesson one time, maybe a couple of times if you want, but that's it, like maximum, right? No more time spent on this lesson because the actual understanding of the sounds is going to come through the rest of the course and through the full course as well. All right. Then we have this guy, which looks like the Poseidon's trident, right? This is a psi sound. The name is also psi of the letter, and it makes the sound, and I'm going to give it to you here. It makes the sound ps, right? Ps, as if you're opening up a can of Coke or something. Ps, right? This is the sound that it makes. PS. That's why I included here, psst, right? Because literally I couldn't find any other word. In Greek, we would say psari, psari, and that is the fish, psari. And then we have our final letter, which is another O letter, and it is not rounded again, it's just O. It's called omega, omega, that's how it's called. And this is not a really good example. This is a better example again. Office, office. We want rounded, we don't want rounded O, we want a very straight, very clean O, office. And in Greek we say ora, which is the hour. It even sounds a little bit like it, hour, ora, ora. All right, so this was the alphabet, you guys. Okay, super interesting. Again, we're going to go through most of it through the course, so no need to spend a lot of time. One, if you want, is ideal. If you want a second time, go for it. Now, I want to cover a few letter combinations. There are more combinations in Greek. And when I say letter combinations, I mean that if you put two certain letters together in Greek, you might produce a different sound, right? And we have a few of them in Greek. But now I'm just going to cover a few of them, but we have a lot of them, right? But again, through the course, we're going to get to know most of them, the most used ones. So some of them here that are very, very common are, for example, this combination here. When you put an alpha and a iota together, it produces the sound e, like when you see in bed, for example. And a few Greek examples that we can see is ke, or παιδί, or αίμα, αίμα, right? Παιδί. So this is a clean e sound. Moving on to this guy, we have this e sound, right? We have an e and an e together. They produce the e sound. E, like in C, like all the rest of the e's that we've seen so far, right? Some Greek examples, κάνει, έχει, μένει. And we see that example here with the E sound, with the H over here, the he letter, where the sound is not back in the throat anymore, it's forward in the mouth. Έχει, έχει, κάνει, μένει, etc. Another usual combination that you might find is this guy over here. This is an O and an I together, if you will, in English. In Greek, it's omicron iota. And again, this is another E, exactly the same like before and all the rest. And in the course, we're going to cover why do we have so many E's in Greek. So C, and a few examples, E phili, and that means the friends. This is an article right here, E phili. Οικογένεια, οικογένεια, right? Οικογένεια, if I go a bit faster. Οικογένεια. So we have one E here, another E here, right? Οικογένεια. Then we have these two guys together, which is an omicron and an epsilon together, or in English, an O and a U, right? And it's pronounced U when these guys are together, like in food. And some words in Greek is pou, or uranos, uranos, or pou, like in food. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So this is what you basically need to know to progress to the next lesson, right? And the most juice of the Greek understanding, Greek language understanding, is going to happen in the next video and onwards, right? Here we were just covering the reading part. Now we can go through some examples together. And here on out is just examples of words. And I'm going to go through them. I'm not going to spend too much time on them because, again, we're going to see a lot of it in the course. So we have some simple words here. This is mama, mama. Then we have papas, papas. And again, every time before I say them, before I pronounce them, feel free to give your own pronunciation and then press play again to hear if my pronunciation matches yours. The next one is kako, kako. Then we have mera, mera. Λόγος, λόγος. Λίγο, λίγο. Φίλος, φίλος. Πόδι, πόδι. Σπίτι, σπίτι. And here we see a combination of two consonants, an S and a P. Spiti. And you see, when I pronounce it, there's no space between them. I'm not saying sipiti or something like that. Spiti, spiti. Χέρι, χέρι. Φως, φως. Νερό, νερό. And again, this guy is an R, right? A rolling R. Νερό. Ψωμί, ψωμί. Χαρά, χαρά. Ώρα, ώρα. All right. Moving to level 2. Και. Παιδί, παιδί. Αίμα, αίμα. Έχει, έχει. Κάνει, κάνει. Φίλοι, φίλοι. Πού, πού. Ουρανός, ουρανός. Δουλειά, δουλειά. Interesting things here happening. We have an U sound, then we have an E sound over here, but because we don't put accent on it, we're just passing it through. Δουλειά, δουλειά. Banana, banana. Τσάι, τσάι. Τζατζίκι, τζατζίκι. You know what that is, right? Dzadziki. Here how it's spelled in Greek. We have a T letter and a Z. Because if you put a T and a Z, you produce the sound D, like in jazz. Dzadziki. All right. One thing I want to cover before I move on here is the fact about the stress marks and the accent. The accent, right? Because again, we're going to say it in the course, but maybe I can mention it now as well. The accent is basically where you put emphasis in the word, right? So, for example, here we have banana, which by the way has another combination here, an M and the P together, right? M and P together, they make the sound B, the B, because you can't really produce another sound if you put an M and then right after a P. Very closed sound, B. So this is banana, banana. Now, if I move the accent here and I put it instead here, that would be pronounced banana, banana. So it just has to do with where you put emphasis in the word, nothing else. The sounds remain exactly the same, just sometimes more emphatic if a stress mark is there, or a tone mark, if you will, or less emphatic if a tone mark or stress mark is not there. For example, this is banana, banana. So you're putting a bit of extra energy into the letter that is that there's a stress mark on top of it. Banana, tai, tzatziki. For example, if I switch the accent here as well and I put it at the, it would be tsai, tsai. Again, don't spend too much time here because I know beginners tend to stress over the details, but these are just the first. This is something that you shouldn't focus on because we're going to see so many words, so many phrases, right, through the course itself. I'm just introducing here, right? So please don't get caught up in the details. Don't feel the need to perfect anything at this stage, right? Start thinking this way from the next lesson and onward, right? I'm just stressing this because I know sometimes when you're very serious about committing to something, you tend to get super, how do you say, super caught up in the small details. But for now, you don't have to, right? From the next lesson and onwards. Level 3. Kalimera. Kalimera. Αγάπη. Αγάπη. Δουλειά. Δουλειά. Ντομάτα. Domata. Interesting combination here. We have an N and a T. And if you put them together, you get the sound D. Domata. Μπροστά. Μπροστά. And here we have the B sound produced by these two guys and then the R straight after. Μπροστά. Ευχαριστώ. Ευχαριστώ. And this here is pronounced as F sometimes. We will see more of that in the course. For now, this is ευχαριστώ. As we saw before here, οικογένεια, οικογένεια. Then we have ψάρι, ψάρι, that PS sound over here. We have χαμόγελο, χαμόγελο. And here we have αυτοκίνητο, a bit of a larger word. Αυτοκίνητο. And this is af again here, but not always, as we will see soon. Αυτοκίνητο. And lastly, we're moving to lesson 4, to the stage 4 over here with some phrases. Καλημέρα σας. Καλημέρα σας. Τι κάνεις? Τι κάνεις? Πού είναι το σπίτι? Πού είναι το σπίτι? Έχω έναν φίλο. Έχω έναν φίλο. Ευχαριστώ πολύ. Ευχαριστώ πολύ. Ο φίλος μου είναι εδώ. Ο φίλος μου είναι εδώ. Θα πάω στην πόλη. Θα πάω στην πόλη. Alright, so that was it here with this practice of these 4 different levels of more challenging and more challenging words. These were the letter combination as well that you have to know for now, and the Greek alphabet. And again, don't stress too much. The juice of the course happens in the lesson right after and onwards. Welcome to the core verb pattern, and we're gonna start our course with a very, very common verb in the Greek language, and that is the verb to express I stay or I am staying. And that word in Greek, that verb is meno. Meno. Super, super common in the Greek language, right? And here, the two English words like I stay and I'm staying, they merge into one Greek word, meno, right? And the I here for I'm staying, right, or I stay, is included in the word here. No need to add anything else. Meno. Specifically, this all sound here at the very end, this all sound, gives us I stay or I'm staying, right? And that would be meno. Feel free to take a moment to repeat it as well. Meno. Pause the video and repeat it. Meno. Then we're going to learn the Greek not or the Greek don't. And that is the word then. Then. And this is how we write it. Then. And this is the Greek not or the Greek don't, and pronounced with a th sound, like when we say that in English, right? Or there. And you see, this is the Greek delta here, the sound, as if we're pronouncing then, right? Or there, or that. So feel free again to take a moment to repeat that as well a few times. Then. Then. So now, if you want to say, I don't stay, or I am not staying, right? You would put that word, which is the not, the Greek not, which is then, in front of the word for I stay, or I'm staying. So feel free to take a moment to say that. How would you say, I don't stay, or I'm not staying? You put the word for then in front of the word for I stay or I'm staying, and you get then meno. Then meno. And that is I don't stay or I'm not staying. Then meno, like so. Greek word for not, our verb for I stay or I'm staying. Put them together, then meno. All right. Now, to say he stays, he's staying, she stays, she's staying, it stays, it is staying, all of these combinations, right? We change the o sound at the end of our verb, at the end of meno, right? The o, to an e sound, right? And we get the version that works for he, she, it. And that is many. Many. Like so. Many. Feel free to take a moment to think about it as well and to produce the sound. Many. Many. So, how would you say now, based on what we covered, he isn't staying or he doesn't stay? She isn't staying or she doesn't stay. It isn't staying or it doesn't stay. How would you say that? Well, again, you would take the word for not, which is then in Greek, and you would put it in front of the verb that we just learned for he, she, it. Many, right? He stays, she stays, it stays. So then many. He doesn't stay. She doesn't stay. It doesn't stay. Super nice. Moving on. To make a question in Greek, the only thing that you have to do is that you have to change your tone. No added parts whatsoever. Because you know, when you want to make a question in English, for example, if you want to say, do you stay, right? Or does he stay? Do I stay? You're adding a do there. And in Greek, we don't need to do that, right? So to make a question, we just change the tone. So tell me again, how was he stays, he's staying, she stays, she's staying, it stays, it is staying? How was that? That was many, like we saw, right? Many. Again, spelled like this. Many. How would you say now, by remembering what I said, right? The fact that you change the tone if you want to make a question, how would you say, is he staying? Is she staying? Does he stay? Does she stay? How would you say that? That would be many, many. So again, we have many, which is he stays, she stays, it stays. And to make it a question, we just change the tone and we add the symbol for the question in Greek, which is a semicolon. And this is pronounced many, many, right? Does he stay? Does she stay? Many. How would you say he doesn't stay? She doesn't stay? How would you say that? That would be then many, spelled like this. Then many, right? Now, the word or the verb rather for I know is xero. Xero. And notice that heavy x sound. Xero. That is spelled like this. Xero. And notice that KS that I put there, xero, pronounced kind of like this. Xero. So we're having a KS here. Xero. And notice also this letter. This is the Xi letter in the Greek alphabet. It looks like that. The capital letter looks like that. The lowercase looks like this. Xero. Kind of like weird looking, right? A little bit like I like to call it a little bit Chinese inspiration right there, especially with the uppercase. Xero. Xero. All right. This is I know. Xero. Feel free to repeat it as well. How would you say he knows, she knows, it knows? So that would be ξέρει. Ξέρει. Spelled like this. Ξέρει. So again, we're changing the O sound, right? To refer back to he, she, it. Ξέρει. So we're making that an E sound. Ξέρει. How would you say he doesn't know? She doesn't know? It doesn't know? You would say δεν ξέρει. Δεν ξέρει. Spelled like this. Δεν ξέρει, right? Super nice. The word for me in Greek, me, is very, very close in the way that it looks and it sounds to the English me. And in Greek, we say me. Me. So instead of having an E sound at the end, we have an E sound. Me. Spelled like this. Me. So if you want to say now, he knows me. He knows me. You would take the me and you would put it in front of the verb. And when I say in front of the verb, I mean on the left. As you look at it, you would put the word for me, right, on the left. So again, the word for me is a me in Greek. So how would you say he knows me? You would say me ξέρει. Me ξέρει. Like this. Me ξέρει. So again, we take the word for me, that is me in Greek, and we're adding it in front of the verb to say he knows me. Me ξέρει. And keeping that E sound here to refer back to he, she, it, right? Me ξέρει. How would you say, doesn't he know me? Doesn't she know me? Right? Doesn't it know me? All of these combinations. How would you say that? So that would be δεν με ξέρει. Δεν με ξέρει. And you might have said something με δεν ξέρει, but here then goes in front of the whole phrase, right? To negate the whole phrase, and then με ξέρει, then με ξέρει. So your me here kind of has priority to be the closest to the verb, right? The closest to the verb. Then με ξέρει, doesn't he know me? All right. What was again I stay or I'm staying? That was μένω. Μένω. And we said the I is included in the word. And the O at the end tells us that it is I, right? And it looks kind of like the W in English, right? It looks a little bit like this when we say meno. Meno. How would you say he stays, she stays, he's staying, she's staying? So that would be many, many. So we said we changed the O sound from meno to an E sound to refer back to he, she, it. Spelled like this: many, many. For he stays, he's staying, she stays, she's staying, it stays, it is staying. All of these combinations. How would you say he is not staying? She is not staying. That would be then many. Then many. What was again? I know. I know. And if you have a hard time remembering that, remember the sound that it makes, right? The sound that it makes. And also how it looks like. I said it looks a little bit like a Chinese letter almost. It has some Chinese inspirations, especially the capital letter. That was xero. Xero for I know. Xero. How would you say he knows? She knows. It knows. So we said we changed the O sound from xero for I know to an E sound at the end. So that becomes xeri. Xeri. Spelled like this. Xeri. Either capital or lowercase, right? We don't mind. Xeri. All right. Very good. Moving on. To say where in Greek, where, we say pou. Pou. As simple as that. We write it like this. Pou. And these two letters being one after the other like this, they produce the sound oo together. So the pronunciation is kind of like as if you're saying poo, right? Poo. But when you say poo, you're kind of like dragging the O a little bit. Poo, poo. But here it's poo. It's a little bit more cut, right? The sound a little bit more short. A better way to say poo. So this word is a little bit stinky almost, right? Poo. All right. Where does he stay? Where does she stay? Where does it stay? Where is he staying? All of these combinations. How would you say that? So we need the word for where, that stinky little word, right? And that is pou. And then for does he stay, does she stay? Pou many, making it a question, right? Using that question tone always whenever we have a question. Pou many. So that would be like this. Pou many. Where does he stay? Where does she stay? Where is he staying? Where is she staying? All of these combinations. And actually this one, pou many, and the word for many or meno, which we learned is I stay or I'm staying, can also be used to express I live or I'm living. So this can also mean where does he live? Where does she live? Right? Both. Pou many. All right. Where does he know? Where does she know? Where does it know? And we use that in Greek to express like how does he know that, right? We say where does he know, meaning where does he know it from? So how would that be? Where does he know? Quite literally. Where does she know? Που ξέρει. Που ξέρει. Like this. Που ξέρει. All right. And again, I'm using all of these images, like the poo, I refer to it to poo, so that you build those associations that we talked about, right? Because that's what we want to do. We want to associate images, sounds, right? Visuals with words so that we remember them easier. So that's why poo is a little bit stinky. Very good. Where does he know? Που ξέρει. Where does he know me? Where does she know me? Where does it know me? How would that be? That would be που με ξέρει. Που με ξέρει, right? Where does he know me? and we said that me in Greek goes in front of the verb and it has priority to be there, right in front. And που goes at the start of the sentence, like in English. Where does he know me? Που με ξέρει? All right. Now, I want to talk about a little bit about the when we say many or when we say ξέρει, this e at the end. This combination of an e, because plainly only this letter is an e in Greek, e sound, as we saw in the reading video as well. This is an e sound by itself. But when these two guys are combined together, they make the sound e. That's why we have many and ξέρει, right? And this is just one of the e's that we have in the Greek language. All right, small recap. What was I stay again, or I'm staying? That was μένω. What was I know? That was ξέρω. What was he knows, she knows, it knows? That was ξέρει. How would you say he doesn't know, she doesn't know? Then ξέρει. All right, moving on. The word for why in Greek, why, is γιατί. Γιατί. Spelled like this. Γιατί. Γιατί. So how would you say, why is he staying? Why is she staying? So that would be γιατί μένει. Γιατί μένει. Spelled like this. Γιατί μένει. Why is he staying? Why is she staying? And remember that question tone always, right? We have words that indicate that it is a question, like γιατί, which means why, or που, which means where, but it always helps in the communication to have that question tone. Γιατί μένει. Why does he know? Why does she know? Why does it know? So that would be γιατί ξέρει. Γιατί ξέρει. Spelled like this. Γιατί ξέρει. Why does he know me? Why does she know me? So that would be γιατί με ξέρει. Γιατί με ξέρει. Spelled like this, with a question tone always. Γιατί με ξέρει. And again, like in English, word by word, right? Why does he know me? Starting with why. Γιατί does he know me? Me in Greek, the me in English, stays the closest to the verb, and then the verb for he knows. Ξέρει. Γιατί με ξέρει. All right. Super nice. That was it for this video. Very good. If you have questions about it, feel free to go through it again. And I will see you in the next video to talk about building and expanding. Γεια σας. Welcome back to the fourth video of the free Greek course. And today we're going to be talking about building and expanding. And specifically, we're going to get more accustomed to building things in Greek, building words, because that's how many Greek words are made. And by knowing how they're built, it's so much easier to bring them back to your mind whenever you need to use them. All right, so we're going to start with our verb for I stay or I'm staying. How would we say that? I stay or I'm staying. That was μένω, right? Μένω. Now, in Greek, we have a word to express around. Around. And that word is περί. Περί. Spelled like this. Περί. Now, you can find that word, περί, which means around, in many English words. Like, for example, perimeter, right? The perimeter when you count around. Perimeter. Or another word is pericarditis. Pericarditis. This is a condition of inflammation around the heart. That's why you have that card over there. Card is kardia in Greek. That's how we call it. So if we see it, pericarditis, right? Or perimeter, like this. So we see that Greek peri, part of these words, peri, around the heart, and around meter, which means count in Greek. So peri, around. Now, if we take the word for peri, around, and we put it in front of meno on the left side, what do we get? If we take peri and we put it in front of meno, we have perimeno, perimeno, spelled like this, perimeno. And that is the word for I wait. I wait. Because if you around stay, if you stay around, in a way you're waiting, right? So now we have perimeno, I wait, built from peri, which is around, and meno, which is I stay or I'm staying. Perimeno, I wait, perimeno. Feel free to take a moment to repeat it a few times as well. Perimeno. I am not waiting or I don't wait. How would you say that? You would say then perimeno. Then perimeno. Like we introduced for our previous verbs, right? Then perimeno. Then going in front of the verb here. Then perimeno. Bravo. How would you say he waits, she waits, it waits? That would be perimeni. Perimeni. Spelled like this. Perimeni. Having that E sound at the very end to refer back to he, she, it, right? Perimeni. How would you say, does he wait? Does she wait? Or is he waiting? Is it waiting? Is she waiting? Well, we said we're going to just change our tone. So from perimeni, for he waits, she waits, it waits, we're going to have now perimeni, perimeni, right? Is he waiting? Does he wait? Perimeni. Spelled exactly like this, like before, with a semicolon, which is a Greek question mark, we said. Perimeni. All right. How would you say he doesn't wait? She doesn't wait? That would be then perimeni. Then perimeni. How would you say now, why is he waiting? Why is he waiting? So that would be the word for why, yati, and then perimeni. Yati perimeni. Yati perimeni. Why is he waiting? Why is she waiting? Yati perimeni. So we saw the word for yati, which is why, right? And then perimeni. Yati perimeni. Why is he waiting? Why is she waiting? How will you say now, why is he waiting for me? Why is she waiting for me? Why is it waiting for me? Or why does he wait for me? All of these combinations we said, remember? How would that be? Γιατί με περιμένει? Γιατί με περιμένει? Spelled like this. Why is he waiting for me? Γιατί με περιμένει? So we start with the word for why, which is γιατί, and then he waits for me. And we said we use me, which goes right in front of the verb, right? Γιατί με περιμένει? Why is he waiting for me? Why isn't he waiting for me? Or why doesn't he wait for me? How would that be? So here we would say γιατί δεν με περιμένει? Γιατί δεν με περιμένει? Because we start with why, right? Γιατί. And then isn't he waiting for me? Right? Negation first, then our word for not or don't, right? Then, and then wait for me. Με περιμένει. And if I also provide you the English like phrase over here so that you can see it a bit more clearly, So why isn't he waiting for me? We have the word for why, right? Why? And this part over here is one thing, is one structure, right? Γιατί δεν με περιμένει. And sometimes it's very, very much encouraged when I give you a sentence, because the sentences are going to be larger and larger. I'm going to give you the first part of the sentence first for you to actually say in Greek, and then the second part. It's very important to know how words are separate, how phrases are separated, so that we can make them in Greek. So we would draw a separation here for why, if we wanted to break it down to make it easier to say, right? That's what I mean. So why, γιατί, and then isn't he waiting for me? It's one thing, because you can't cut it here, right? If you cut it here, you have isn't he waiting, which would be then perimeni, but you're missing the me over here. So that's why this is one structure. Why isn't he waiting for me? Γιατί δεν με περιμένει, with our semicolon at the end. All right, very good. So we said the sound of then in Greek, which is the Greek note or don't, is like the sound of then in English. It's as if we're saying then, right? Or that. All right. So as you see, it's about building things, right? It's not about thinking about how do I say wait, right? We're not thinking about how do we say wait. We're thinking about how do I find wait? How did I build? How can I build wait? We saw that we're building wait from our core verb, which was I stay. That was meno. And then we said we're adding the word for around. I around stay, right? I wait. Peri. So we have perimeno. That's how we find perimeno again. So whenever you get stuck, try to think about how do I find it again? Maybe it's built from some parts. Maybe I can remember the sound of it. Maybe I can remember how it looks like, right? Perimeno. I wait. All right. Now we're going to look a little bit how the word for why is formed. What was the word for why? Γιατί. Γιατί. And actually here, ya, this is made up of two words. Ya in Greek means actually for. Ya, for. And ti in Greek means what. What. So ya over here means for. Sometimes it could mean because of as well. So for or because of. And ti means what. What. So we kind of like saying, when we're saying why, we're saying γιατί. In a way, we're saying for what, meaning for what reason, or because of what, because that's what why is, right? And many European languages also follow this pattern as well. For example, we have the French. The French, they're saying pourquoi, pourquoi, which is exactly the same structure here. Pourquoi, which is like for and what. Same in Spanish. ¿Por qué? Right? ¿Por qué? Two words. For what? So we're seeing the same structure here in Greek as well. Γιατί. Γιατί. For what? Or because of what? So what was the word for what then? What? And the way to think about it here is that think about the word for why, γιατί, and take the word for what from γιατί. So the word for what is τι. Τι. So how would you say now, what is he waiting for? What is he awaiting? So that would be τι περιμένει, τι περιμένει, spelled like this. Τι περιμένει. And in English here, we're saying, what is he waiting for? But that for, we don't need to translate in Greek. In Greek, we're just saying, we're saying, what is he awaiting? Or what is he waiting, right? We don't need that for. Τι περιμένει, what is he waiting for? What is she waiting for? All right. So what was, again, I stay or I'm staying, our base verb? That was μένω. Μένω. What was he stays? She stays. It stays. He's staying, etc. That was many. Many. Spelled like this. Many. Now, if we add an S at the very end of many, it gives us the version for you. Manys. Manys. That means you stay or you live, right? Manys. Because we saw again, if you remember, that meno means I stay or I live, right? So you stay or you live. Manys. And that is the Greek S sound whenever a word is ending with an S, right? Because we saw in the reading video that the S in Greek has three forms. This guy, the capital, this guy, the lowercase, and this guy, like this guy, which is whenever a word ends with an S, right? So menis, you stay. And of course, we have a formal you and informal you in Greek. And this is the informal one, menis, the one that you use with friends and family, for example. Great. So we add an S to many and we get menis. How do we say where again? Where? We say pu, right? A little bit stinky, pu. How would you say, where do you stay? Where do you live? You would say, pu menis, spelled like this. Pu menis, where do you stay? Where do you live? And we have that S here referring back to you. Pu menis. Where do you know me? Where do you know me? Think about how would we say that. That would be Πού με ξέρεις? Πού με ξέρεις? Where do you know me? Right? And we have the word for me, which in Greek is me, right? Where do you know me? Πού με ξέρεις? Sitting in front of the verb. And πού, as in English, goes right at the start. Πού με ξέρεις? Where are you waiting? Where are you waiting? So that would be πού περιμένεις? Πού περιμένεις? Spelled like this. Whoops, small typo here. Πού περιμένεις? Where are you waiting? Where are you waiting for me? Where are you waiting for me? Starting with the word for where. What was where? Πού. And then where are you waiting for me? Πού με περιμένεις? Πού με περιμένεις? Right? Πού με περιμένεις? Where are you waiting for me? What was the word for why again? Or for what? For what? Why? That was γιατί. Γιατί. Again, we said it's made up of two words, right? For, or because of, and τι, which is what? Τι. So how would you say, why don't you wait for me? Why don't you wait for me? And that would be γιατί δεν με περιμένεις. Γιατί δεν με περιμένεις. Γιατί δεν με περιμένεις. Why don't you wait for me? Γιατί δεν με περιμένεις. What was the word for what? Again, you guys, for what? That was τι. Τι. What are you waiting for? How would you say that? What are you waiting for? So that would be τι περιμένεις. Τι περιμένεις. And in Greek here, that for, again, we don't need to translate. Τι περιμένεις. Τι περιμένεις. What are you waiting for? How would you say, are you waiting for me? Are you waiting for me? So that would be με περιμένεις. Με περιμένεις. Making it a question, right? With a question tone. Με περιμένεις. Like so. Are you waiting for me? How would you say, aren't you waiting for me? Aren't you waiting for me? Take a moment to think about that. So that would be, δεν με περιμένεις. Δεν με περιμένεις. So we're just negating what we had before. Before we had, are you waiting for me? And that was me περιμένεις. And here we have, aren't you waiting for me? So then me περιμένεις. All right. Super nice. Very good job. That was it for building and expanding, right? We're going to continue with the everyday verbs in the next video. Welcome back to the free Greek course. And in this video, we're going to learn a few more everyday verbs, and we will start combining the verbs we know already to longer sentences. All right, let's give it a go. So the verb for I do or I make is κάνω. Κάνω. Spelled like this. Feel free to repeat it as well before I write it. Κάνω. Κάνω, spelled like this. We have that O at the end, right? The omega in Greek, κάνω. And again, don't confuse this guy with a V, right? This is the Greek N sound. Ni. Κάνω. All right. So again, I do or I make. What was that? Κάνω. You can also say I am doing or I am making, right? It captures again that meaning as well. I do, I'm doing, I make, I'm making. Κάνω. So how would you say he does, she does, or he's making, she's doing, he's doing, all of that stuff? So that would be κάνει. Κάνει. Spelled like this. Κάνει. Like normal, right? Κάνει. We have that E sound at the end of the verb to refer back to he, she, it. Κάνει. How would you say you do? That would be κάνεις. Κάνεις. So we put that S at the very end, right? And now we have the version for you. Κάνεις. All right. So how would you say now? How would you say, what are you doing? What are you doing? So that would be τι κάνεις. Τι κάνεις. Spelled like this. Τι κάνεις. Mm-hmm. And again, if you get stuck with how to find T, try to think of why again. What was why? Why was γιατί. Remember? Γιατί. So we try to isolate the second part of γιατί, which is τι, because we said γιατί can also mean for what. And I want to write here, but my lettering is so big over here. I don't know why. Let me see if I can delete that stuff. Can I? All right. All right, like this. So we saw γιατί, right, which is why, but also it can use to mean for what if we see the lettering here, the words that are contained in γιατί separately, right? Για for, τι for what. And για can also mean because of, by the way, because of. Because of what, for what, or else why. So that's where we get τι from, right? From γιατί. All right. So we differentiate between how are you, right? And what are you doing? So τι κάνεις, and τι κάνεις means what are you doing, but it can also means how are you, right? And this is a super, super common way for a Greek to greet another person and ask how they are, right? How are you? Τι κάνεις, and it's exactly the same sound as well. But sometimes, other than the context, right, we can differentiate between how are you and what are you doing when we hear τι κάνεις by a few words. For example, we can have a word for now. The word for now is τώρα in Greek. Τώρα. Τώρα. So somebody might say, for example, what are you doing now? What are you doing now? How would that be? Τι κάνεις τώρα, τι κάνεις τώρα. And because we have τώρα over here, we can think of τι κάνεις as being a bit more literal, right? Like literally, what are you doing now? Right? Τι κάνεις τώρα, right? Somebody might call you on the phone. In Greek, they might say, τι κάνεις τώρα? Literally, what are you doing now on the other side of the phone, right? So there can be some words here and there that restrict the context a bit more, like τώρα, right? Okay, so how would you say, what is he doing, or how is he? How would you say that? What is he doing? How is he? Both both sentences here, right? So that would be in Greek, τι κάνει, τι κάνει, depending on the context. That's what I mean, both sentences. One sentence, what is he doing? The other one, how is he? Depending on the context, it's one or the other in Greek. Τι κάνει, what is he doing now? That would be, how would that be? That would be, τι κάνει τώρα, τι κάνει τώρα, like this. Τι κάνει τώρα? All right. What was again I do or I make? That was κάνω. Κάνω. Now in Greek, we use the word for I to be emphatic, right? For example, I stay, or I am staying, or like I am waiting, or I wait. The word for I to be emphatic is εγώ, spelled like this. Εγώ. And we have that soft G sound, right? In Greek, it's γάμα, γ, and it resonates on the throat here, like γ, γ, γ. We don't want to make this too much ASMR, right? Γ, γ. It resonates over here. And when you have an O right next to γάμα, the sound is always back in the throat. Εγώ, right here. I can feel it here. Εγώ. So what does this word in English remind you of? Εγώ. Is there an English word that you get into your head by listening to εγώ? If you found it right, congratulations. That is ego. Ego, right? Super, super, super connected with that word. Ego, because when we're saying you have a big ego, we mean you have a big I, right? You care about yourself. You're egotistic. Εγώ. So how would you say now, I am staying, or I stay, with emphasis, using the word for I mean? That would be εγώ μένω. Εγώ μένω. I am staying, or I stay. And here, because these words don't necessarily, syntax-wise, they don't have any tie with each other, right? They don't have any tie with each other. And what do I mean by that? For example, we have the phrase δεν περιμένω, I don't wait, or I'm not waiting. And here we have a tie between these words, because if we break them up, we lose the meaning of I'm not waiting or I don't wait, right? If I remove this, we have some completely different meaning. But with these guys, we can move them around because they don't necessarily tie into each other. So, εγώ μένω, we can also say μένω εγώ. So both of the versions work. Μένω εγώ, εγώ μένω. And that goes for any verb, not just for μένω. How would you say I am waiting or I wait? That would be εγώ περιμένω or περιμένω εγώ. Or περιμένω εγώ, like this. How would you say I am not waiting or I don't wait, with emphasis again? That would be εγώ δεν περιμένω. Εγώ δεν περιμένω. Or you can even take this guy and move him at the very end. Δεν περιμένω εγώ. Δεν περιμένω εγώ. Right? Εγώ δεν περιμένω εγώ. And over here we have εγώ first. Why? Because here we have δεν περιμένω. These guys are tied together, right? We can't really break them up or put anything in between because we break the meaning. So this guy is kind of like a different group, if you will. And this is another group of words into the sentence. So we can move them around, right? Εγώ δεν περιμένω or δεν περιμένω εγώ. All right. What was I know again? I know that we introduced before. That was ξέρω. Ξέρω. And if you have a hard time remembering it, remember the sound that it makes, right? The KS sound, the hard X sound, or maybe how it looks like. And remember, the capital letter looks like a Japanese almost letter, right? Because it's very like almost like a painting. Ξέρω. I don't know. How would that be? That would be δεν ξέρω. Δεν ξέρω. I don't know. Δεν ξέρω. What about he knows? That would be ξέρει. Ξέρει. What about you know? That would be, remember actually, if you have a hard time, before I give you the answer, remember what we have to put at the end of ξέρει to make it refer back to you. The S. Ξέρεις. That would be you know. Ξέρεις. Why don't you know? Why don't you know? We try to remember the word for why or for what. That would be γιατί. Again, why don't you know? Γιατί. And don't you know is as if we're saying you don't know. But because we have a question, why don't you know? We have to just have a question tone in our voice. So how do you say you don't know? That would be δεν ξέρεις. So why don't you know would be γιατί δεν ξέρεις, with a question tone, right? Γιατί δεν ξέρεις. How would you say you know me? You know me. And remember the word for me in Greek sounds like a little bit like the word for me in English, right? You know me. That would be με ξέρεις. Με ξέρεις. And we don't want me or something like that, right? Close to French sounding me. We want me. Me. A clean e sound. Με ξέρεις. You don't know me. How would that be? You don't know me. Δεν με ξέρεις. Δεν με ξέρεις. Δεν με ξέρεις, like this. And we said that me over here has the biggest priority to be the closest to the verb. So then goes in front of everything. Δεν με ξέρεις. You don't know me. How would you say emphatically, I know, with emphasis on I? I know. That would be εγώ ξέρω. Or what would be the other way? That would be ξέρω εγώ. Ξέρω εγώ. How do we say where again? That would be που. Που, like this. Let's try this together, you guys. Don't you know where he is staying? Don't you know where he's staying? And for these bigger sentences, you want to break them up part by part. So here, in a way, we have three parts. We have don't you know where he is staying. So let's build it up together. Don't you know would be what? Δεν ξέρεις, right? And I'll zoom out a little bit. Δεν ξέρεις, don't you know? And then we have where he is staying. So we need where. What is where? Που. And then he is staying, or he stays. Same thing. Many. So all in all, don't you know where he is staying? Δεν ξέρεις που μένει, right? Δεν ξέρεις που μένει. All right. Next one, again, part by part. Don't you know where he's waiting for me? So don't you know? would be δεν ξέρεις, where, που, he is waiting for me, με περιμένει. So all in all, don't you know where he is waiting for me? Δεν ξέρεις που με περιμένει. Like this. Δεν ξέρεις που με περιμένει. Alright. How do we say why again? And remember, how do we find it? Because why is made up of two words. For and what. For and what. Γιατί. Γιατί. So let's try this. Doesn't he know why you're staying? Doesn't he know why you're staying? We break it up. Doesn't he know? Δεν ξέρει. Why? Γιατί you're staying. Μένεις. So all in all, doesn't he know why you're staying? Δεν ξέρει γιατί μένεις. Δεν ξέρει γιατί μένεις. Alright, super cool. Next one. I don't know what you're waiting for. I don't know what you're waiting for. Again, we break it up. I don't know. Δεν ξέρω. What. Τι. You're waiting for. Περιμένεις. All in all, I don't know what you're waiting for. Δεν ξέρω τι περιμένεις. Δεν ξέρω τι περιμένεις. If I'm going too fast, feel free to slow it down even more, right? Repeat, try to go for it again, try to understand the explanations. If I'm going too fast, feel free to speed up the video as well, right? All right. Then now we're arriving to another everyday verb, and that is the verb for I want. And that is θέλω. Θέλω. Spelled like this. Θέλω. And we have that th sound, the theta, which in Greek is a th sound when we say thanks or thoughts, right? Thanks or thoughts. We don't want to confuse that when I say th with like when we say then or that. This is a different th sound in English, right? Like when we say, for example, then. So we have θέλω with a th from thanks. Θέλω. I want. So how would you say I don't want? Practicing both th sounds together, right? The delta and the theta in Greek. I don't want. Δεν θέλω. Spelled like this. Δεν θέλω. This is the letter theta, by the way. This is the letter delta. Δεν θέλω. He wants, she wants, it wants. That would be θέλει. Having that E sound at the end, right? Θέλει. Sometimes we use θέλει in the form of a need. For example, we can say it wants water, referring to a plant. It wants water. In English, you would say it needs water, maybe. In Greek, we say it wants water. That would be θέλει νερό. Θέλει νερό. It wants water. Or for food, it wants salt. It wants salt. In English, you say it needs salt. In Greek, it wants salt. That would be θέλει αλάτι. So it's a very, very useful everyday verb, right? Θέλω. How would you say again, you want? That would be θέλεις. What do you want? How would that be? That would be τι θέλεις. Whoops. Τι θέλεις? What do you want? Τι θέλεις? How do you say I want? Again, I want. Θέλω. Θέλω. And we're arriving at a full circle of the verb θέλω, right? So we know already some everyday type of verbs, right? We know θέλω, which is I want. We know μένω, which is I stay, I'm staying. We know perimeno, which is I wait, right? We know κάνω, which is I do, right? Or I make. Super nice. Okay. Very, very good. And we also know another one actually, which is I know. What was I know? That was ξέρω. Super useful, all of them, right? Very, very used in an everyday situation. And next time, we're going to see the use of na, which is going to help us make even more, I don't want to say complex, but I want to say sentences that communicate more information, right? Because na connects verbs together. But more on that in the next video, which is introducing na. And as always, if you want to talk more about Polylog and how we can help you build your 90-day study plan with Greek and eventually start speaking Greek, right? Which is our ultimate goal. Feel free to book a call here and I can lay out a roadmap for you along with letting you know about the Polylog Masterclass, which is the next step for you after this free Greek course. All right, thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one introducing Na. Welcome to the sixth video of the free Greek course, and today we're going to be talking about something very interesting, which is the use of na. And how do we use na to combine verbs together and make more complex sentences in Greek and speak more complex sentences in Greek, right? Okay, let's get started. So first off, tell me, what was the verb for I want? What was that? I want. That was θέλω. Θέλω. Spelled like this. Not exactly like this, but like this. Θέλω. And now tell me, what was I know? I know. That was ξέρω. Ξέρω. Spelled like this. Ξέρω. So now, if we want to say something like that in Greek, which is I want to know. In Greek, there is no to connect verbs like that. I want to know. In Greek, we would say that as in like I want, I know, but we would connect these two verbs using this little word that we're going to talk about today, which is na, spelled like this, na. So if you want to say something like I want to know in Greek, we would say something like this. I want na, I know. So how would that be? How would that sound? That would be θέλω να ξέρω. Θέλω να ξέρω. And here we took a little in-between step in order to make the English, which is what I want to know, closer to the Greek. And you might find yourself doing that in order to make the structures in Greek. Not yet, probably a bit later on when it's going to get a bit more complex. For now, it's pretty manageable, right? Just like that. I want to know, θέλω να ξέρω, using na to connect our two verbs, θέλω and ξέρω. What about I don't want to know? How would that be? I don't want to know. As always, you put then in front of everything. So that would be δεν θέλω να ξέρω. Δεν θέλω να ξέρω. All right. Now again, na has no function has no meaning by itself. It is a function word. That's how we like to call it, a function word. And it has different functions. One of those is to connect two verbs together like so, right? Θέλω να ξέρω. I want to know. How would you say you want to know? So like before, like we had I want to know, both of our verbs were in the I form, right? I want να I know, θέλω να ξέρω. Here we have you want to know. So both of our verbs will be in the you form. So you want to know would be how? Well, it would be something like this. You want να you know. How do we say you want? We say θέλεις να stays the same. You know, ξέρεις. So you want να, you know would be θέλεις να ξέρεις. Make sense? Alright. Θέλεις να ξέρεις. You want to know. Do you want to know? And again, here we have just a question. In Greek, nothing changes. Do you want to know? Θέλεις να ξέρεις. Θέλεις να ξέρεις. Θέλεις να ξέρεις. Don't you want to know? Don't you want to know? So that would be first, don't you want? Δεν θέλεις. Connection, which is να, and then to know. Ξέρεις. Don't you want to know? Δεν θέλεις να ξέρεις. Like this. Δεν θέλεις να ξέρεις, right? Sometimes, feel free to take the in-between step on your own. Sometimes I will cover it myself, right? Okay. Why don't you want to know? Why don't you want to know? So starting with why, which is γιατί. Don't you want, which is δεν θέλεις. And then to know. Να ξέρεις. So all in all, why don't you want to know? Γιατί δεν θέλεις να ξέρεις. Γιατί δεν θέλεις να ξέρεις. What do you want to know? What do you want to know? Τι, for what? Do you want to know? Θέλεις, for you want. Να. And for to know, we have να ξέρεις. Ξέρεις. So what do you want to know? Τι θέλεις να ξέρεις. Τι θέλεις να ξέρεις. How would you make he wants to know? He wants to know. Like before, we have you want to know, and you was affecting both of our verbs. Here, he wants to know, he affects both of our verbs. So we have he wants to know, where the in-between step would be θέλει. The in-between step would be he wants, να, he knows. So that would be θέλει, να, he knows, which would be ξέρει. Θέλει να ξέρει. He wants to know, right? He wants to know. Θέλει να ξέρει. Let's try this together. He wants to know where I am staying. He wants to know where I'm staying. So starting with he wants, θέλει. Then we put what? Να, because we have another verb coming, right? He wants to know. Θέλει να. Then to know. Ξέρει, right? Ξέρει. Where, που, I am staying. Μένω. So all in all, he wants to know where I'm staying. Θέλει να ξέρει που μένω. Or θέλει να ξέρει που μένω. And if I we kind of break it down together as well. So we have the in-between step here. He wants, να, he knows, right, where I am staying. So that would be he wants, θέλει, να, he knows, ξέρει, where, που, I'm staying. Μένω. Θέλει να ξέρει που μένω. All right. Let's try this. She wants to know why you're not waiting for me. Don't panic, right? It's a bigger sentence. Let's take it part by part. The sentence was again, she wants to know why you're not waiting for me. Starting with, she wants to know. That would be, θέλει να ξέρει why, γιατί, you're not waiting for me. Δεν με περιμένεις. Let's see that together as well. She wants to know why you're not waiting for me. So we have she wants, θέλει. She wants to know, θέλει να, connection, the verb know. She knows, ξέρει. Θέλει να ξέρει. Why, γιατί. You're not waiting for me. This is one part, you guys. If you break it down on your own, be careful, because if you actually put a separation here, you're messing up the meaning. And I'll explain. You're not waiting for me is δεν με περιμένεις. So again, if you put a separation here, you're not waiting, the translation of that is what? It's δεν περιμένεις. So if you just cut it off here, you're forgetting the me, which is the for me, right? The me. So that's why we need to be careful how we're cutting everything, right? So normally we want to include the verb and what is coming next in the form of me, you, him, her, etc. It's one structure. So this is one, like this is one. Θέλει να ξέρει γιατί δεν με περιμένεις. Or slower if you want. Θέλει να ξέρει γιατί δεν με περιμένεις. I don't want to wait. How would that be? I don't want to wait. Starting with I don't want, which is δεν θέλω, connection, να. I wait. Περιμένω. So I don't want to wait. Δεν θέλω να περιμένω. Like this. Δεν θέλω να περιμένω. All right. Don't you want to wait for me? Don't you want to wait for me? Take a moment, think about it, no stress, break it up, use what we already know, and let's go. Don't you want to wait for me? Starting with don't you want. That would be δεν θέλεις. Don't you want to wait for me? So we have another verb coming. So δεν θέλεις να wait for me. Με περιμένεις, because it's a question, right? So all in all, don't you want to wait for me? Δεν θέλεις να με περιμένεις. Like this. Δεν θέλεις να με περιμένεις. Why don't you want to wait for me? Why don't you want to wait for me? So the only additional thing that we have here is why. What was why? Γιατί. Γιατί. So why don't you want? So γιατί δεν θέλεις to wait for me. Να με περιμένεις. Right? So one more time. Why don't you want to wait for me? Γιατί δεν θέλεις να με περιμένεις. Γιατί δεν θέλεις να με περιμένεις. Alright. As we're moving forward, I will not be explaining every little thing all the time, right? I'm not going to be providing every time the in-between step, because I'm guessing you worked on that, so you're understanding it, right? And also to start moving into the course, right, without delaying too much, because we're going to get more complex and more complex. But if you happen to have a question about something, go on the community, ask your question at this part of the course. Yorgos says this. I don't understand, right? Feel free to explain to me what's going on, or feel free to show up with that question in the daily Q&A that we do every Sunday in the free Greek course community, right? So don't get disappointed if you're having a hard time with something. Write it down and come back to the community with your question. All right, moving on. I want to know. What was that? I want to know. Θέλω να ξέρω. Θέλω να ξέρω. All right. How would we say now? I want you to know. I want you to know. So before we've seen structures like I want to know, right? You want to know. He wants to know, etc. She wants to know, and all of that stuff, right? And here we have only one person affecting the whole sentence. But now we have I want you to know. We have one person affecting the sentence and then another one affecting the sentence as well. So, what is going on? How do we make our verbs? Well, the answer to that is that you have I, and I is affecting this verb. Then we have you, and you is affecting this verb, the verb that comes after. So, we don't panic. We try to break it down in a very logical way, like so. So, I want you to know. So, we have I want, which is θέλω, connection, because we have another verb coming up, να, and then you to know, which is kind of like you know. Ξέρεις. So I want you to know, θέλω να ξέρεις. And if I take the in-between step here is I want να you know. That is the strategy here. I want να you know. Θέλω να ξέρεις. Easy peasy. Easy for me to say. Θέλω να ξέρεις, says the native. All right. Moving on. Do you want me to wait? Do you want me to wait? And in English, that's a little bit more complicated because, again, from language to language, they express things a bit differently. And in English, they say, do you want me to wait? But in Greek, we say something like, do you want I to wait? So don't get confused by that me over here. You don't need to use me, but you need to interpret it. I'm not sure how that goes. Interpret it, I think, like I. Do you want I to wait? So how would that be? So here we have to make it a little bit more literal, a bit closer to Greek. So let's take that in between step. Let's take that help of the audience. Sounds like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Okay, do you want me to wait? Let's take that in between step. So we have, do you want? Na, I wait. So this is your structure. Do you want? Na, I wait. Do you want me to wait? So how would that be? Well, do you want would be θέλεις, then the connection, να, and then I wait. Περιμένω. So all in all, do you want me to wait? Θέλεις να περιμένω? All right, and let me show you that. So, do you want me to wait? We take that in between step, right? Do you want? Να, I wait. Right? And I said again that me doesn't affect us because in Greek we just mean I. So, do you want? Θέλεις να περιμένω? Θέλεις να περιμένω? Do you want me to wait? Make sense? All right. Let's march forward. If you want to be emphatic with that sentence, meaning using the word for I, right, in Greek, do you want me to wait? In that sense, how would you say it? Take a moment and think about how we did the previous structures with I, with the emphatic versions, with εγώ. And I'm going to give you a little hint here. Every time εγώ in the previous things that we did was placed either at the start or at the very end. So do the same here. Do you want me to wait with emphasis? How would that be? So that would be either εγώ θέλεις να περιμένω. Or if you take the other option, putting it at the very end, θέλεις να περιμένω εγώ, right? So it would be either εγώ θέλεις να περιμένω. Do you want me to wait? Or θέλεις να περιμένω εγώ. So both work here. Okay. What was the word for me in Greek again? That was me. Are you waiting for me? That would be με περιμένεις. Με περιμένεις. And we said that words like that, like me, right, for me, go right in front of the verb on the left in Greek, right? Με περιμένεις. Now, me is me. The word for you in Greek, and actually I can do it maybe like this, it's a bit better. Me. The word for you in Greek is se, which is super cool, super convenient because they're actually very, very close. Same sound on the end, we just change the consonant at the start. Me for me, se for you. And that you is what we use to refer to friends and people we know, people who can be familiar, people that are familiar to us and we can be casual with, a little bit friendly, right? Se. So we have me for me, se for you. So how would you say, I am waiting for you? I am waiting for you. So think, how does me normally act like? It goes in front of the verb. Se acts exactly the same way. So how would you say, I'm waiting for you? Well, that would be se περιμένω. Se περιμένω. I'm waiting for you. Se περιμένω. All right. Let's try this. Do you want me to wait for you? Do you want me to wait for you? And again, let's break it down. No rush, no panic. So we said we have a me in there, which is used like that in English. In Greek, though, we don't have a me really. We have an I in there, right? So let's try to find the in-between version of it, in-between step. Do you want me to wait for you? That would be, do you want na I wait for you? So how would that be? Do you want na I wait for you? Starting with do you want. Θέλεις να I wait for you. Σε περιμένω, right? Do you want me to wait for you? Θέλεις να σε περιμένω. Let's see it written as well. Do you want me to wait for you? We took the in-between step, the help of the audience. So that would be, do you want, right? Do you want να I wait for you? So that would be, do you want θέλεις να I wait for you, σε περιμένω. And we have se here acting exactly like me, right? Goes in front of the verb. Θέλεις να σε περιμένω. All right. Super cool. How do we say where in Greek? Where? That would be που. Που. Where do you want me to wait for you? Where do you want me to wait for you? And literally we say in Greek, where do you want να I wait for you? Where do you want να I wait for you? So how would that be? So we have where, which is που. Do you want becomes θέλεις να I wait for you. Σε περιμένω. So all in all, where do you want me to wait for you? Πού θέλεις να σε περιμένω? Πού θέλεις να σε περιμένω? And don't forget the question tone into your questions, right? Because in Greek, that's how we understand you're making a question. Of course, we have the question words that indicate there's going to be a question, που, where, but also the question tone really helps to communicate, right? Okay. All right. I don't want him to know where I'm staying. We break it down. I don't want him to know where I'm staying. Starting with I don't want. That would be δεν θέλω him to know. And again, we have a him here, but in Greek, it's basically a he. That's how we express it. I don't want him to know something like he knows. So then θέλω, I don't want, connection, να, he knows, ξέρει, where, που, I am staying, μένω. So one more time, I don't want him to know where I'm staying. Δεν θέλω να ξέρει που μένω. I don't want him to know where I'm staying. Right? And if we had to break it down here, it would be like this. I don't want him to know where, you can break it here if you want, I'm staying, right? So that would be then θέλω, then him to know more like he knows, right? Να ξέρει where, που, I'm staying, μένω. Δεν θέλω να ξέρει που μένω. So you see, by seeing a sentence as parts, individual parts, we can very, not easily necessarily, but in a much more manageable way, try to produce the sentence in Greek, right? By breaking it up, because honestly, sentences, what are sentences? Pieces of information combined together, right? So no panic, try to break it down, look back to what you know, and try to apply it at every new sentence that we introduce. Δεν θέλω να ξέρει που μένω. I don't want him to know where I'm staying. How do we say here? Again, here. That would be... actually, sorry, we haven't covered that. Here, to say here, we say εδώ. Εδώ. Which sound do you hear in this word? Like when you say think, or like when you say that, or there. The second one, right? Like there or that. Εδώ. Εδώ. And we have that delta in Greek. It looks like a D kind of, inspired by the D as well. Delta. And we have that over here, which is the omega, right? And we're seeing here that not always verbs end with O. Sometimes you might have other words, like this guy. Εδώ, here. And by the way, maybe what can help you also remember εδώ is that delta in the middle, and the capital one is like a triangle here, which is super interesting, right? It's like a triangle. Εδώ. How do you say I make or I do? That is κάνω. Κάνω. What are you doing here? What are you doing here? What was that? If you forget what, try to bring it back through why, the Greek why, which is, in other words, for what. That is τι. Τι, what. So what are you doing here? Τι κάνεις εδώ? Τι κάνεις εδώ? And again, if you forget a word, try maybe to remember the sound that it makes, right? Try to remember maybe how it looks like. So we're trying to associate with that word as many things as possible. Visuals, audio, etc. Τι κάνεις εδώ? What are you doing here? How would you say, I am staying here? I am staying here. I am staying, μένω. And the word for here was what? Again, try to remember the sound that it makes, right? Or maybe how it looks like. There's a triangle there, right? The capital one. The capital delta. So I'm staying here. Μένω εδώ. Μένω εδώ. Let's try this. I don't want to wait for you here. I don't want to wait for you here. Take your time, think about it, break up the sentence. I don't want would be δεν θέλω. To wait for you would be να σε περιμένω. Here. Εδώ. So all in all, I don't want to wait for you here. Δεν θέλω να σε περιμένω εδώ. Δεν θέλω να σε περιμένω εδώ. Right? Okay. Try this now. I want you to wait for me here. I want you to wait for me here. Starting with I want, which is θέλω. You to wait for me, or in other words, you wait for me. Να for the connection. Με περιμένεις, and the word for here. Εδώ. So one more time. I want you to wait for me here. Θέλω να με περιμένεις εδώ. Θέλω να με περιμένεις εδώ. Period. Alright. Very good. Very good job, you guys. Again, you see how we're slowly but surely building into more complicated and more complex structures and sentences by understanding the very basics, right? And building on top of that lesson by lesson and explaining the new topics, the new grammar topics, right? That we are to introduce. Like today, it was not. All right. So this was the end of the material, right? For the free Greek course. And I'm super excited to see you in the next video to talk about the next steps for you after you really master this material and know how to speak every structure and every sentence that I gave you so far. Okay, super excited. Thank you for being here, and I see you in the next video. Τα λέμε. Congratulations for completing the free Greek course. I'm super proud of you for taking the time, really committing and putting down the hours to complete the free Greek course and learning the material. And in this video, I want to show you the next steps and what is the natural progression for you to really go forward and completely immerse yourself into the journey of learning how to speak Greek. All right. So what is Polylog? And I want to introduce Polylog through our students that subscribed to it. So we have here Alexandra. She moved to Cyprus and she actually is moving to Greece as well very soon. And she's using the Polylog masterclass system to progress into Greek and eventually start having conversations. And now, after some time with us, she speaks with her gym trainer, which is super nice, and also with her friends that she was able to make while she was in Cyprus. And that's super exciting. And she's building up to having even more conversations the more she's using the system. Then we have Natalia Lex. Natalia wants to move to Greece with her boyfriend, and I think they will be moving later on this year, which is very exciting. She took fast action, she followed our system, and right now she lives in London, and she already orders at her local bakery, Greek bakery, and interacts with the Greek people there, the waiters, the shop owner. And that's very exciting. That's a dream for many people, right? To go into a Greek restaurant, a Greek place, and really interact in Greek. And she's also getting free pastries because of her commitment to Greek and her journey, right? Because since she lives close to the place, people get to see her progress month by month. So that's very exciting. And lastly, we have Paul. Paul has a Greek heritage. As a lot of people in our community, they have Greek families that they want to connect deeper with. And Paul showed trust, subscribed to the course, and within 2 months, he can express basic things in Greek, and he's slowly but surely building towards having more complicated conversations. And also, he has a conference in Crete that is happening very soon. So I'm super excited to know how it will go for him and how the interactions in Greek will happen and will go. All right. So a few things about Polylog, right? What is Polylog? So Polylog is our paid complete learning experience designed to help Greek learners go from understanding pieces or bits of the language to speaking it confidently in real conversations. Inside the program, we combine structured lessons, guided practice, speaking sessions that are live so that you just don't learn Greek, but you actually use it and apply it, right? And the goal is simple to help you build the skills, build the confidence, build the habits that are needed to communicate naturally and with confidence in Greek. So, what you get within the Polylog course is that you get the full Greek course, right? You get access to the complete Greek course, not just the free unit that is available in the free Greek course. The program walks you through step by step through the structures of the language so that you learn how to build sentences, understand how Greek works, and progressively move towards being fluent and having conversations in Greek. You also get speaking sessions and access to those, multiple weekly conversation classes where you practice speaking Greek in a structured and supportive environment. So instead of learning alone, you actually get to actively use the language with other learners and get comfortable in expressing yourself in real conversations with Greek speakers. You also get daily Q&As, right? You can ask questions, you can get feedback, and unblock yourself quickly if you happen to not understand something very well within the course. You show up to the call, we discuss it together, you ask the question to me, and I get to answer it to you and live to the other people as well. So if something doesn't make sense, you don't stay stuck, you get guidance so you can keep progressing and building confidence in the language. You also get smart practice tools, right? You get access to tools designed to reinforce the material, including flashcards and other little systems that I'll be releasing soon as well within the Polylog masterclass, within the Polylog course, to really reinforce the vocabulary and the words that we learn inside there. You also get access to another exclusive community, right? Which is intentionally kept small and more focused so you don't get lost in noise of the free community, right? Conversations are meaningful inside there, feedback is real, and members are serious about improving their Greek. So here I'm talking about an exclusive community that is called the Polylog Masterclass, and there you will get access to all of these things, and it will be exclusive. It will be just you and all the other people that have access to this community, nobody else, right? So everybody there is going to be in the same boat as you, having invested and trying to actively learn how to really take the next step to progress in Greek. Also, consistency and accountability, right? You get that inside that exclusive community because when you're surrounded by other motivated learners, it becomes much easier to stay consistent. So Polylog creates the environment where progress becomes part of your routine. So in a few words, you get the complete Greek experience. You get lessons, you get practice, you get feedback, you get community and guidance, everything working together to help you move from studying Greek to actually speaking it with confidence, right? All right, so this is how it looks like for now for you, right? The free Greek course. You had your unit 1, which is about building your first sentences, right? We have the welcome video talking about decisions and beliefs. We have the reading chapter talking about how to read Greek, right? We understood how to form the core verb pattern for 2, 3 persons, the I, the you, and the he, she, it. We learned to build and expand on that. We learned some everyday verbs that you can use as well. We learn how to make more complicated structures, introducing na. And now we're seeing the next step. So this is what you have access to. If you like the free Greek course, then you're going to love the next step, which is the Polylog Masterclass, right? Polylog Masterclass. You get the rest of the units to really complete your learning Greek experience and to eventually learn how to speak Greek. You get the unit 2, which is about linking your ideas together. You get the unit 3, which is about talking about yesterday and tomorrow. You get unit 4, which is about sounding more natural. Unit 5, about handling real conversations. Unit 6, it's about speaking with confidence, right? And you get to have access to the full course, the full units, daily Q&A calls, conversation practice classes weekly, and also flashcards, right? To really practice the material again and again, understand how the structures are forming, etc. And a lot more exciting things as well. I have a lot of things planned as well for the Polylog Masterclass, but for now we have these 4 modules, right? So, are you ready to take the next step? So, many people will probably think that maybe I'm not ready yet, right? And with this part of the presentation, I want to go through the real problem that many people that is holding back many people to actually taking the next step. So people think sometimes that Greek is too hard, but it feels that way when it's taught in the wrong way, right? With the right structure, it becomes very manageable. And I have spent a lot of time trying to build the most intuitive, logical way to communicate Greek and the Greek language to you, right? So part of it, I have my responsibility, right, to really make it very intuitive, but part of it is on you as well to take the next step and put trust in the course and in the process. So Greek is not actually too hard, it has to do with the system. Many people say my memory is bad, right? And actually, you don't need perfect memory at all. You need the right patterns, the right associations, right? And also a lot of repetition. And actually, one of the things that I say a lot of times during the course is do not memorize. Do not memorize because memorization doesn't actually internalize the material. We don't want memorization, right? At all. We want to build associations, we want to build patterns and repeat them so that we understand how everything is built. So you don't really need good memory. And this connects well with the I'm too old to learn a language, right? Because people think that because they have maybe weak memory growing older, this is a big limiting factor and they won't be able to learn Greek ever. But actually, older adults learn faster when the method does not focus in memorization, when instead it focuses on logic and structure, no memorization. Because honestly, if you try to compete with a 20-year-old, 25-year-old, 30-year-old on memorization when you're 50 or 60 or 45, right, or 40, right, then you're going to lose the game. You can't compete with a 20-year-old brain on memorization. But we don't care about that because we're focusing on logic and structure. And logic and structure is about understanding. And your understanding muscle in your brain does not weaken. Memorization might weaken, but not your understanding muscle. So you guys are a bit too old, or maybe a little old. You have no excuse now, right? Because we don't need memorization anyway. I'm afraid of making mistakes. This is another thing that I hear a lot, but you have to understand that making mistakes are an important and crucial part of learning any skill. Any skill that you start from zero, you are not that good at it, right? You make a lot of mistakes, and eventually, through understanding your mistakes and what you did wrong, you become better. The same goes with Greek. We want to make mistakes, but that's exactly why we practice inside this community first. So when you're out in the real world, when you're speaking with your Greek family, when you're speaking with locals, you already feel confident because you make no mistakes now. All your mistakes will have been made inside the community, inside the course, so that you're ready to actually have the conversations in real life, right? So this is super important. It's great to make mistakes, but many people are afraid of making mistakes out there. It's possible to not have mistakes out there by making all of your mistakes and learning within the community, right? That's why the community is here, so that you're ready to perform and really speak at your best when you're out there in Greece speaking with Greek people. I tried apps, but nothing worked. Another thing that people say, right, like Duolingo, apps give exposure, right? But progress comes from guided practice and real speaking. Because we have a lot of people that are like, man, I don't think Greek is for me because I have practiced on Duolingo for 3 years. But Duolingo is literally made to be a game. It gives you a lot of exposure, it gives you some words here and there, but it doesn't guide you into understanding how the language works. So this is what we do in the community. I don't have time to learn Greek. This is another thing. But actually, practicing a little bit every day really helps you move forward fast because we don't want you to like have time to practice one time in the week or one day in the week for like 5 hours. We want you to have small segments of practice spread throughout the week, and 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes at the end of the month lead to maybe 15 hours, 20 hours, right? Which is exactly what we want. So do not think about that you have to practice a lot of time during the day. Just 20, 30 minutes, right? Going through the videos, going through the material is really going to help you, and also showing up once in a while, if you like, to the daily Q&A calls as well, to solve any questions that you have, and eventually to the speaking classes after you finish the course, right? Okay, so ready to take the next step? Let's do this. So the first thing that you're going to do if you take the next step, it's going to be to have a free Greek one-on-one strategy call. So we're going to get on a one-on-one call, and we're going to discuss how we help learners move from understanding Greek to speaking Greek confidently in real conversations, right? I'm going to walk you through the Polylog Masterclass and how it works and the journey so that you know what you expect. Also, we're going to talk about your Greek roadmap. We're going to talk about your path to fluency based on your current level and goals, right? So I'm going to give you a structure on what are the next steps for you on your learning, right? To really eventually reach your goals, which is probably, I'm guessing, conversations with other people, other Greeks or non-Greeks. So we're going to also identify what's holding you back, right? Any obstacles that are slowing down your progress and how to fix them, any limiting beliefs like we covered before. Also, we're going to make up your plan, speaking confidence plan, I like to call it, right? So you will leave, whether you work with us or not, with clear steps to progress in Greek, right? What to focus on based on where you are, right? So I'm going to definitely help out in the call to make some structures as well together to see how the process is working, right? And if it's a good fit and you like it, then we'll show you how to continue the journey within Polylog. And of course, the first step is to actually book your free call at thepolylog.co/start, where you can book the call through your availability, depending on when you're available, right? We can have a chat together and go through all of that stuff inside the call. And this is how the Polylog Masterclass looks like again, linking your ideas, talking about yesterday and tomorrow, sounding more natural, handle real conversations, speaking with confidence, and also daily Q&A stuff, conversation practice classes, and flashcards as well. And a lot of people have tried it already. So we have Lara over here, where she says that 1 month worth a year and a half, because he was already trying to learn Greek for a long time, but 1 month within the system, the Polylog system that I teach my students, and she's been able to progress immensely. We have also Nina. She's getting out of her comfort zone because she's getting to practice the Greek that she learns, right, within our conversation classes, which is really, really exciting, right? Because we need that energy when you go out there to speak with Greeks. We have Chris as well, who's taken a lot of classes in the past, but finally he's talking Greek. We have Natalia. In just about 5 months, she's speaking Greek already, which is super, super cool. And of course, a lot more people as well, like Galina, right? She has learned a lot. We have Lucy over here, which she wishes she started sooner. 100% recommend. I can finally speak with my in-laws, which is the dream for people that are with a Greek person, right? They're a couple, international couple, right? The Greek man or a Greek woman to speak with the in-laws. So take the first step. Trust the process. You already finished the free Greek course, which is amazing. You took the first step. Let's go ahead and complete the journey, you guys. All right. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you in the call.